All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're going to tackle a really big question. A question about all of us, really. And we're going to look at it through the incredible lens of political anthropology.
I mean, really think about it. How did we get from small, roaming family groups to, well, to this? To massive nations, complex laws, governments, all of it. For most of human history, that just wasn't the case. So how did that massive shift happen? Let's dig in.
So the tool we're going to use to unpack this is political anthropology. Now, what is that? It's basically the study of how all societies, from the smallest to the largest, have figured out how to organize themselves. How to manage public policy, who gets to have power, and just generally how to keep things from falling apart. This is going to be our roadmap for today.
Okay, so to make sense of this huge journey, we're going to use a really helpful framework from an anthropologist named Elman Service. Now, I gotta say, it's a model. It's simplified, right? Not every single society on Earth followed these steps in this exact order. But it is a fantastic way to see the big picture, to understand the major shifts that happened as our populations grew. Let's see how it all stacks up.
And boom, here it is. This chart just lays it all out so clearly. I mean, just look at that population row. We go from a group that could literally fit in your living room to populations in the tens of thousands and beyond. And check out the leadership. It goes from totally informal, maybe the best hunter leads the hunt that day, to these formal, hereditary positions, and then bam, a full-blown centralized government. And maybe the biggest change of all, look at the social structure. We start out super equal, egalitarian, and end up with ranked, class-based societies. This chart right here, this is the whole story in one glance.
All right, so let's start at the beginning of that chart. We're going to look at what anthropologists call uncentralized systems. And that name is pretty self-explanatory, right? These are societies that get by just fine without a central government or a formal leader calling all the shots.
So the most basic form of this is the band. And when I say small, I mean small. We're talking groups of hunter-gatherers, usually under 100 people, who are often on the move. There's no president, no chief, no permanent boss of any kind. If a big decision needs to be made, everyone talks it out until they reach a consensus. Your whole world, your whole social safety net is your family, your kinship group. It's a very flexible, very personal, and honestly, a pretty equal way to live. Okay, so from the band, we take a step up in complexity to the tribe. So what's the big difference here? Well, the key word is integration. See, a band is basically just one single community. That's it. But a tribe has these clever ways of linking multiple communities together. You might have clans where people in different villages all consider themselves related. Or you might have something called age sets, where all the men born in the same few years form this lifelong brotherhood. This ability to unite different groups, plus the fact that they're now producing their own food instead of just hunting and gathering, means they can support bigger populations. And, as you can see, that makes them a lot stronger.
Okay, now we're at a huge fork in the road. A massive turning point in human history, really. This is where we see the rise of centralized systems. For the first time ever, we're going to see formal, permanent leaders and real social hierarchies.
And that brings us to the chiefdom. Now we're talking populations in the thousands. And all that political authority, it's concentrated in one person, the chief. This isn't a temporary role either. It's a permanent office, and it's usually hereditary, passed down through the family. This is the first time we see society formally ranked, stratified. The chief's family is literally seen as better than everyone else. And the chief has a ton of economic power too, because they control how food and goods get redistributed. That gives them some serious clout.
So, from chiefdoms, we make the leap to the system most of us know very, very well today, the state. And the classic definition comes from the sociologist Max Weber. He said a state has a monopoly of the legitimate use of powers. Let's chew on that for a second. Monopoly on legitimate use of power. It means the state is the only one that gets to use force legally. Think police, think armies. And it's compulsory. You can't just decide you're not part of the state anymore. You're in it.
So what makes a state so different, so powerful? Well, for starters, it's got all these formal institutions that other systems just don't have. We're talking legislatures, courts, a massive bureaucracy, the works. The state gets to decide who's a citizen and what rights they have. It has a standing army ready to go, and of course it has the power to tax everybody to pay for all this. It is without a doubt the most complex and powerful way we've ever organized ourselves.
Okay, so we've walked through the different kinds of political systems: bands, tribes, chiefdoms, states. But what are the basic ingredients? What are the fundamental tools that make any of them work? Well, that brings us to what you could call the toolkit of governance.
And the first tool in that kit, the most basic one, is power. Simple, raw power. Max Weber, him again, defined it as basically the ability to get someone to do what you want, even if they don't want to do it. It's the raw ability to impose your will. Think about it. It doesn't have to be fair or right. It's just about getting the result you want, through force or threat.
But societies that run on pure force tend to be pretty unstable. So there's a much more effective tool, and that's authority. Now, Weber's definition here is key. Authority is when people obey a command willingly. They're not doing it because there's a gun to their head. They're doing it because they believe the person giving the order has the right to give it. It's legitimate power. It's power that we accept as proper.
So let's really nail down the difference here. Power can be totally informal, right? Think of a super charismatic person who can get a whole crowd to do something even though they have no official position. That's power. Authority, on the other hand, is formal. It comes with the job. A police officer has authority because of the uniform and the badge, not because of their sparkling personality. So here's the bottom line. Power is the ability to force someone. Authority is the accepted right to tell them what to do.
And the last big tool in this governance toolkit is social control. And this is, well, it's everything. It's all the ways a society encourages its members to follow the rules. And it ranges from the super informal stuff like, the fear of your neighbors gossiping about you if your lawn is a mess, all the way to the super formal stuff like laws, police, courts, and prisons. It's the entire web of pressures that keeps us all more or less in line.
All right. We have covered a ton of ground. So let's zoom out. Let's pull all these threads together and ask the big question. Why does any of this matter? Why is this journey from bans to bureaucracies so important? So here's that whole journey in one place. We start with those small egalitarian bands, where kinship is everything. Then we scale up to tribes, which find ways to link different communities. After that comes the chiefdom. That's the game changer that introduces a central, hereditary leader and social ranking. And all of that leads to the state, this huge, complex society with a government that holds a monopoly on force. It's a clear progression, right? Bigger scale, more centralization, and way more complexity. When you step back and look at it all, the real story here is about human adaptability. It's pretty incredible, actually. As our societies got bigger, our problems got bigger, and our methods of governance had to evolve right along with them. We went from making decisions based on family ties to writing constitutions, from talking things out to building court systems. We adapted. And so that leaves us with one last big question, and this one's for you to think about. We've seen the path: band, tribe, chiefdom, state. But now, we live in a world that's more connected than ever. We've got the internet, global corporations that are richer than some countries, and problems like climate change that don't care about borders. So, what do you think is next? What could be the next stage in how we as a species organize ourselves?